Hey, what's going on, everybody? Different setting today. Y'all are joining me on my workout on the elliptical. And so what better time to have a topic that's about health and food? We're going to relate it into politics as we always do, and I apologize for being out of breath as I probably will, but let's get into it. So I actually was watching a lot of documentaries lately and reading a couple articles, and one of the things that has been alarming to me is, I don't know if y'all knew, but 75% of Americans are obese. 75%. I knew people were fat, but this is insane. For any country, and not even just in a shallow, superficial way, but in terms of health, a country's longevity and economics, it is really detrimental. And just to put some perspective on it, I think about 40 years ago, only about 25% of Americans were obese. 25%. And that has blown up to fucking 75% today. And what could have happened so quickly? That's just a generation. It's literally just a generation. And we declare so many emergencies and all this stuff, but it's really odd to me that we have not declared a health emergency in our country. What will it take? Does it take 90% of our country to be obese in order for us to actually do something about it? I don't understand what the line is there, and it's not so much about working out, because Americans have more gym memberships than any other country in the world, and that includes countries with more than 1 billion people like India and China. You know what I'm saying? America, with only about 330 million people, has far more, I think well over 100 something million gym memberships, and we are still unhealthy. And to me, we have to start asking ourselves more questions. Why are we, of all countries, the fattest country on earth? And it has nothing to do with affluence, because there are other, kind of first world countries, I hate using that have a higher GDP per capita, that have a higher life expectancy, that have higher levels of education, that of all the kind of categories and what we deem as a successful country, are more successful than America, but their obesity rate is nowhere near ours. There's no other country that has an obesity rate even close to 50%. It's really ridiculous. And so it begs one to ask, Americans' activities have not differed more than other nations' activities that are similar. So what about us? And I think one of the things that we don't look at, which is the obvious answer, is the food. And I really encourage you all to look at, since a lot of people don't like reading, and you could read a lot of journals, but documentaries are more fun, right? Look at all the food documentaries. There's sugar documentaries and things about meat and all these things. And later on I'll give you some titles just to look up specifically, but the food industry is gangster. Gangster. They literally fight to keep secrets from us. They fight for labeling, they fight to, say things are 100% fruit when they're not. They fight to say things have no additives when they do. They fight to keep specific ingredients out of labels. You know what I'm saying? It's why would a company be fighting to hide what they're putting in our food? And why would anyone besides that company be helping them? Are we okay with companies putting anything in our food and not having to report it? Is that where we are in this country, that somehow is a partisan issue about us wanting to know what goes in our products? And this is what happens when you don't have regulation. You have a lot of people regulation is terrible, but no. Imagine what that would do in the food industry. Imagine if they didn't have to tell you. Now, they already lie, but imagine if they were completely unregulated. What do you think, what kind of impact would that have? They'd be putting every kind of poison, they'd be mislabeling it, they'd be doing everything. And if you don't believe me, just look it up in history. They have fought everything that has been about posting health, about posting truth and ingredients. And you all know this. Look at Instagram, look at Facebook. You can even see there are tons of posts about, and of course, beyond post research, you can back up the research, that the same products in different countries have different ingredients, right? Look at Coca-Cola made in America versus Coca-Cola produced in another country. Look at cereal produced in an oatmeal produced in England versus produced here. They may have 4 or 5 ingredients that you all know. Ours have like 17 with chemicals and shit and compounds you can't even pronounce. We put artificial dyes in our food that we know cause cancer, that we know are harmful, but we still do it. And it's just like, why are we just kind of being led into this? Just not even in terms of just like a health thing, but let me just break it down into government, because I feel like I've attacked it kind of on an individual level that we need to really figure out things for ourselves. But let's talk about the economic impact of what this is about. Healthcare costs are the number one expense. The number one domestic expense is healthcare. And that's also including a Medicare and Medicaid. Just think about this in a purely logical economic argument. So the baby boomers, which are all turning like 60, 70 now, is the largest generation that America's ever had. And they were basically responsible for the establishment of the middle class and all these things. And they really were like a great age where we achieved a lot of success. But now we have an economy that needs jobs that they fill to be filled. You can see right now the reason why our unemployment rate is so low is because we need people. And that's why immigration is really important, because Americans are not having babies at enough to replace the jobs that are there. So that's a whole nother conversation, which is like people are so against immigration, but they don't understand that we need it. Otherwise, we'll be really fucked. But that's another video. But just in terms of what we actually need in the country, it's going to bankrupt us. So you have a bunch of baby boomers that are aging, that are going to get out the workforce. But what do old people need? Medicine, right? They need shit to be taken care of. They go to the doctor far more. So if you have an elderly people already have greater health problems, because that's what happens when you get old, imagine throwing obesity on top of that. What do you think that's going to do for the health systems? How are insurance companies going to be able to afford to, increase those expenses? They say that obese people, at minimum, have 5 times the healthcare lifetime expenses than people of, normal weight. That will bankrupt every healthcare thing America has if we continue on this path. And especially if we don't have a tax base of new workers that can at least help us pay for the increased expenses that we will have from this elderly population that will not be working and not earning tax revenue, and kind of just impacting our economy in that way. So it literally is an economic issue. What do you think it'll do for you? Because insurance companies, they're not going to just target seniors. They're going to raise all the prices. Your co-pays and deductibles are going to go skyrocketing through the roof because they have to accommodate for those people. And then Republicans just want to do away with healthcare in general and privatize it. And then what do you think is going to happen then? The government is probably just making sure people get health insurance. But before that, I know a lot of y'all pretend like y'all don't remember history, but they were denying people health care for being obese. They were denying people health care for smoking and pre-existing conditions. They were denying people for that shit. And if they weren't, they were making them pay 5 times over in premiums. So basically, they couldn't even afford health care. So that's the alternative. And we need not look further than COVID to see how obesity impacts us. Obese people were 3 times more likely to be hospitalized. 3 times. That significantly impacted COVID a lot more. The only other variable that was stronger than obesity for people being in the hospital because of COVID was age. Elderly people made up 60% of the cases. I think obese people made up about 40%. You combine those two, what the fuck you think is going to happen? So in short, I feel like we need to attack it on multiple levels, but the easiest is to try and demand healthier food. I really think that is it. It's not necessarily our bad exercise patterns and not blaming us all the way, but it's these lying corporations that are putting all these additives, all these chemicals, all these things into our food that we don't even know what their impact on us will be. But we just need to look at some of other countries that ban. Why are they banning some of the things in our products? Read it. They have pretty good justification for it. we just choose to not do that. It's like, to me, it's ridiculous. Why would Americans be okay with having inferior, less healthy products? It just literally is baffling, but we just go along with it, and we're taking ourselves right to the graveyard as a result of it, and taking ourselves right into to bankruptcy as well. So it's just a different thing, just thinking about it. Like, we should be able to unite over that, right? It's not partisan to say, hey, I want to know what I'm eating. I want the government to make sure that this company is not putting arsenic in my shit. You know what I mean? Like, it should be quite simple. But there's so many things that we could fight for together. And I just think we should be more informed and fight the battles that matter the most. So until next time.